this is Kathy Dindolk, and I have John Taylor with me. We are both employees of Salt River Project, and we work in a group that has a robust data mart that collects all kinds of information about customers. I just wanted to kind of give you a little background about that. If you go to our next slide, Jeff. So SRT's mission is to deliver high-value electricity and water for the benefit of our customers, shareholders, and the communities we serve. And just so you understand, a shareholder is a water customer and a customer is an electricity customer, because we have two different parts of our business. We started over 100 years ago to provide water to the Salt River Valley. I should say to provide a consistent source of water, because what was happening is we would either have floods or we would have droughts, and the farmers had no means of having a consistent water supply. And so we were formed when Roosevelt Dam was created, and the farmers pledged their lands to build that dam, and in return they got a consistent source of water. From that effort, the Salt River Project Agricultural Improvement Empowered District was formed when they realized that they could provide hydropower to some of those farmers. And we are located in the Phoenix metro area, and we provide electricity to approximately 2 million people, which translates to about 960,000 electric customers. We also deliver 1 million acre-feet of water in central Arizona, and we have about 20,000 water customers. You can go to the next slide. So as I said, John and I work in a data warehouse group. We started this warehouse over 10 to 12 years ago, and we were interested in aggregating accounts up to a customer level. That's kind of how it started. And we provide data and services to departments throughout SRP, load research, forecasting, environmental, customer services, all different departments throughout there. Our system contains information from multiple billing systems, and we also gather information about participation of customers in energy efficiency programs and convenience programs, pricing programs. And we also append a lot of data about customers, things like demographic, psychographic, behavioral data, participation data, geospatial, and financial, lots of information about our customers. And it is all integrated at a bill account level. Within our project that we initiated with Utopia, we performed multiple transformations using Firstlogic and SQL Server queries. And this is the original process, and you can see that we use many different softwares to finally come up with a name and address file. I should say a cleansed name and address file. So if you go on to the next page. We have had a license for Firstlogic for about 10 years, and it got bought out by Business Objects, so then we had that license, and then most recently SAP purchased Business Objects, and so then we had their tool set. We didn't investigate any other products after we purchased Firstlogic. I believe in the beginning we did use Hart Hanks, but we moved on from them. Firstlogic was at the end of its life, and then we also had a server upgrade, and when that all happened, we were unable to install the software on our server just because of the complexity of the install. And so we came up with a plan to bring in Utopia to help us do that install and to provide some training and guidance on how to use the software and to translate or transform our first process that we wanted to use. In the past, we had been using an extensive collection of SQL Server scripts and Firstlogic jobs, and we started out and we had an address file and a name file, and we had to cleanse both of those first before we could do matching with our residential customers and our commercial customers. And what we're showing right here where it says customer key, bill account 1, 2, and 3, that's basically how the business customers would look. So like a Motorola would have many different accounts with us, and we're trying to roll those up to a single customer so that we can get an idea of their magnitude of usage. Another example might be with a conglomerate like, what is the name of that, John? Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's not in the notes.
Berkshire Hathaway owns several different companies that are not related at all, and so what we want to do is bring together that, let's say, Baskin-Robbins and Pepsi and a clothing store, and make that all one customer. So they would have separate bill accounts, but one customer ID. And then we also used to do a lot of data manipulation where we would standardize names because they come in from our billing system in a very inconsistent manner depending on how the customer service rep has typed it in. Sometimes it's uppercase, sometimes it's mixed case, and it just makes it hard to match. Okay, next slide. So before we had the software, we took a very narrow view of customers, and we grouped them by class, whether they were a power customer, a water customer, a business customer, a residential customer, and we really didn't have a good way of bringing those together and knowing when a customer might overlap in those areas. And now that we have our business object software, we are able to identify relationships between business and residential customers, between residential electric customers and residential water customers, probably between businesses and water, and the possibilities are really endless. We're finding that we have a lot of information coming in, for instance, electric vehicle customers, and it comes in with a name and address, and there's no account number. So now that we have the software, we're able to match those up really well because it standardizes the names and the addresses, and it has a lot of intelligence built into it that allows you to relax the guidelines on the match. And so you like, let's say if you do a 100% match, that would be where everything matches, but if you relax it to a 90% match, you may get like a John Taylor and a Jonathan Taylor, and they're the same people, they're at the same address, it's just the name is slightly different. Using this new software, we're also able to profile customers differently, or kind of maybe get a magnitude of their usage and understand all the different ways that we interact with that customer. So we're really excited about this. We're at the very beginning of it. And I will now turn this over to John to give you some more in-depth information. And we're on the next slide, Jeff.
Thank you, Kathy. As you can see, excuse me, as Kathy said, we got caught in a bit of a kind of a perfect storm of end-of-life cycle situations. We were at the end of the life cycle for the Firstlogic product. We're at the end of the life cycle for the servers. And just because of resources, we basically had to make a decision, and that was to migrate the Firstlogic to into our new server environment, and then hope at some point to upgrade that. So we went for a few years that way, and got to the point where we realized that we needed to move forward. We needed to get out of the old technology, move up, and get things prepared for the next 10 years or so. So we ended up talking to the guys from Utopia. Jeff came in, gave us a nice demo, showed us what data services can do, and that pretty much made the decision right there that we needed to upgrade, and the next step was really to decide what we wanted to do. First bullet just simply says we scrapped everything. We had just a library of SQL jobs, scripts, file transfers, quite a you call it spaghetti bowl of processes that we were using to do our ETL from our billing system. And one of the great things that we found about looking at data services is the fact that many of these things are included in just packaged transforms. Everything that we needed to do, I don't want to sound like too much of a commercial, is basically included. They thought of practically everything. We were able to step in and look at all the processes that we were trying to do. There are transforms, there are tools to do that, and so that really helped make that decision a lot easier. Using data services, we were able to, because of the flexibility that we have with data services and the platform that it works on, we were able to expand the data processing that we were doing. In the beginning, we were doing a small group of our customers just because of the fact that we did not have the flexibility to be very reactive or very agile with the process. And in just the beginning phases of our project, we've already expanded the universe of data that we're looking at from just our commercial customers into, as Kathy said, we're looking at residential, water. We're able to really bring everybody in to try and create that 360-degree view that we want. We were able to really identify more business-to-business relationships, more business-to-residential relationships, and to look at that residential relationship. And if you're in the utility business, you know what I'm talking about. It's really important, and we tend to be very segregated between those groups. But it really is important to bring those guys together. And one of the other things that we found in this whole replacement is the fact that, and I'll get into this as we get into the tech issues a little bit later, but as this last bullet says, all the name and address directories are included in the data services. So that took an extra burden off of us because we had to buy those separately, and that was just another maintenance issue that we had to deal with. And so if you want to hit the next one, Jeff. Thank you. And I think we've really pretty much said all of this over and over again, but we really want one view of a customer. We really want to be able to see every way that we touch a customer and every way that a customer touches us, whether it be through electric billing, whether it be through any kind of communications, whether it's a vendor relationship. These are the things that we're trying to get to, because we in this business, we can no longer just look at a business or a resident just as an account. We have to be able to look at them in terms of how our whole relationship works. And this is the tool that's going to really allow us to step that up to the next level and be able to identify that and then hopefully plan for that and find some advantages there. You can see there's just some quick examples up there that I won't really go into all of that, but basically we have a lot of different relationships with people. And our goal going forward is going to be to continue to identify those and use the tools that are available through data services to help us do that. So Jeff, if you go next slide, and I'll just get to my favorite parts. The IT benefits that we had, as I said, we had quite a disparate collection of SQL and all sorts of different jobs. And In the prior tool, when we were using the Firstlogic tool, it pretty much limited us to 2 data sources, either a flat file or a DB4 file, I believe it was, which caused extra processing. You're limited to that, and by having I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. I get so excited about this, I start to jump ahead. So anyway, the connectivity issue is that we were able to, through data services, basically connect to any database, to any data source. We communicate and we interact with many different departments across the company. And I'm sure anybody listening knows you've got people who like Excel, you've got people who like Access, you've got people who like to store data in PowerPoint presentations. You've got so many different things out there. You've got DB2 to connect to, you've got SQL servers, you've got Oracle. We've got all of these things spread around the company. This allows us to go in and, using our connection managers, basically set up and eliminate a lot of steps of creating flat files, importing flat files, and then moving, since we're in one platform, as we go to that next bullet, you'll see we have 3 separate products that are in the Firstlogic suite that we use for DQ. And we have to pass files between each of those, and they generate more files. And so pretty soon, you have quite a file farm growing out there, which again, is our storage problems. It's just a kind of a mess. Well, with one platform, we're able to move these things through, and I don't know, it's not the official term, but I call it the box, the data services box. We can do everything within that. We don't have to go outside to perform any of our functions. We can do our ETL, we can bring it in, we can do our transforms, and then we can load our tables directly through that. So it really is going to cut down on the amount of maintenance, the amount of confusion, and then moving into the next bullet, it allows us to have more consistency across the implementation. As it is now, with things the way they are, if you're not the person who put together that one little piece of code or that one little process, there's nobody else who can figure out how to fix it. And that's kind of where we got. We got to the point where it had been worked on by so many people over the years, we really couldn't fix anything. This is going to give us consistency from step 1 through step Z, that we'll be able to transfer that knowledge and maintain that consistency, and which also ties in with the next step of reduced custom processes. By more standardization, reducing those custom processes will allow us to keep this, I'm looking long term, ongoing business here. The more knowledge we can transfer, the easier we can maintain this, the better maintainability, or however you want to say it. It's just going to be a huge advantage to us as we move forward, because that's what put us in that bind, is that we couldn't maintain and we could not alter what we had. The standardization then leads us to some better project management. All of us in the shop will be using the same tools. We're not going to be having one person writing SSIS packages and another person writing something in data services and another person writing Excel macros or whatever it might be. So it's going to allow us to standardize that better project management, and also get a better view of just what the whole project is. As you'll see in the demo that Jeff's going to do, you'll be able to really track what's happening through the whole process. And also, you then have the portability of being able to move between platforms. And I just put that in here because, again, that's where we ran into. We were at the end of the life cycle for a server, and moving into new hardware created quite a job for us to be able to update all of those old Firstlogic jobs, which are basically a lot of DOS jobs that ran in batch at night, and tons of text files and jobs that we had to go through and change data sources, change server names. And with the portability you have here going across a standard platform, is that if you need to move an environment, it's not that difficult to move your process. Basically save it and load it someplace else. So we were really extremely happy with that, and to help us also integrate more with the corporate install of SAP as they're doing that. So we're able to handle many tasks, multiple transforms, multiple tasks within a single data flow, instead of having so many separate jobs that are all tied together, just by little threads. So that's really the main thing on the IT benefits, and I could go way on, but Jeff's going to answer a whole lot of questions on that. So Jeff, if you give me the next slide here. I'll just run through this real quickly because, again, we've gone through this. Again, with our view of a single view of the customer, we need to make sure our data is clean. We need to be able to use the tools like Information Steward. We need to be able to do profiling. We need to do this to spot anomalies. This is what's going to help us keep things clean because we're bringing in so much data from so many sources, and it's not as clean as we would like it to be. We obviously, now that we've replaced our basic core process that we had before, we'd like to start expanding the use of data services to replace more and more of the ETL process that we have. We have a custom extraction job that brings in data from the different billing systems that we have with a lot of manipulation that goes on with that. We'd like to move that out. We'd like to move on the other end to the load section to begin to do more of our data mart loads from data services. Eventually eliminate as much of the scattered, again, SSIS packages and things like that to move within this. And as we move forward, as we keep doing this, any of you who work with the business side know that if they hear you've got something, they want it. And then they want more. So this is where we want to start being able to more easily incorporate that external data, the different demographics, this sort of thing. So, and all of these can be done because of really the ease of adding in new data sources, creating new streams. It's something that will really move forward as we do that. And that one, I think I'm just going to go ahead and finish with that. I think we've got a really good basis to go forward with this. Very happy with the way the product fits with what we're doing. And I believe that as we go forward, it'll do nothing but enhance the way that we can serve our clients and continue to improve the product over the years. So that's it for me.
Okay, thanks, John. I'm Kathy. My name is Jeff Knox. I'm a director in the Solutions Consulting Group here at Utopia. I have been in the IT industry for close to 30 years with a focus on, started out with data processing, data quality. Back in the days of mainframe, I've used about every data quality tool on the market. I eventually ended up working for Firstlogic. I was a sales engineer there for a number of years. I went through the acquisition with Business Objects and the integration into Data Integrator at the time, now Data Services, as part of the acquisition to SAP. So I've had hands-on on this tool for 10-plus years and a lot of experience on this, and a lot of experience in the actual legacy and in the design of the new tools. And the reason we're talking today is because if you've got Firstlogic legacy software, you had a data quality problem and you wanted to take care of that. And these are some slides that I borrowed from SAP, and they're telling you that 40% of all business initiatives fail because of data quality. How do you take care of that? SAP has a portfolio of tools that the data quality tool set falls under. It's called Information Management Solutions. There are a number of tools under there. We're going to focus on a couple of them today, but this is what the Information Management portfolio does. It talks about the integration of data from multiple sources. With this tool, Data Services, full-blown license, you can get a piece of it that takes unstructured data. So if you're a marketing company and you want to know what your customers think of your products, you can do sentiment analysis from websites, Twitter feeds and such, and tell you what they think about your products, and you can merge that with your structured data and understand what your customers are saying. You have the ability to discover using tools such as Information Steward we're going to show today, figuring out what's the matter with your data before you start, understanding how you need to focus on cleansing. And then once you put some rules into place with periodic feeds, you want to look at your data over time to make sure that the data quality processes that you put in place are being adhered to, and you can monitor that data. Once you're monitoring that data, you're cleansing it. It gives you the ability to trust that information. You're going to be able to correct the issues, be proactive instead of reactive. You're going to be able to have a governance policy. Even if all you're doing is marketing, you want to make sure you're not marketing to multiple times to the same person, or you want to look at that 360-degree view of your customer. This is the portfolio that's going to help you. In specific, we're going to talk about two tool sets from SAP today called Data Services and Information Steward. And what this shows you here is that the underlying engine and application is the same. It's two different distinctive user interfaces. Information Steward user interface can be given to somebody who actually understands the data or and doesn't actually do the data processing rules. The Data Services technical user interface is for the person who's actually going to transform the data and cleanse the data, do the data quality. So as we get into this, you'll see that the one environment is made for read-only, the ability to discover, set up rules, decide what the governance policy, the cleansing rules should be, and then also monitor data over time. This is just a slide from SAP to talk about the robustness of this tool. If you have Firstlogic tool, you know that Firstlogic was around for just about 20 years, and this tool set is very robust. Once they merged that with the industry-leading ETL tool from ActiveWorks, when SAP purchased them and brought this tool set along, you're going to see that there's a very robust functionality here that, as John said, manages the whole process in one place. But now what we're going to do is I'm going to step out and go to an actual demonstration. One moment. So let's step back and start with Information Steward. Information Steward gives us the ability to actually profile the data and find out what's going on with the data prior to actually, I'm having a little issue with my screen here, okay. So prior to actually cleansing the data. Ultimately, you would have the ability to create this dashboard, if you will, and you can have dashboard. This is a single file dashboard. This is showing that we have cleansed data. So as you go along and monitor data over time, if you're loading a data warehouse, if you're having a marketing database, whatever you're doing, as you cleanse the data, as you load it, you want to keep track of it and make sure that the health of the data is valid. Now, how do you go about doing this? Well, one of the things that we're going to look at is I'm going to step out to a project here, and I'm going to go in and actually show you how you go about it and what the sort of first layer of the onion, if you will. So one of the things you want to do is you just click on it and set up, point it to the data file and have it go and actually do a very first level profile. So as you can see here, this is a customer file, and it gives you things like minimum, maximum values, string length, completeness, pattern, word, and value distribution. So if you look at this file called region here, this field called region, you'll see that in the minimum value is the letter D. So if I click on that, region should be a state. And if I look at this should be Washington, D.C. Now certainly you with the history of Firstlogic will know that this is going to be taken care of right away inside the tool. So we don't really care that there's a single digit state. It's going to take care of that. But if you look through here, this is telling you the first layer. So if we get down here and we look at this field called DOB, date of birth, minimum value is a date. Look at the maximum value. The maximum value has an actual email address in it too. So if I go over here to the end and I say, you know what, let me see what's the deal with that. Let's look at the actual patterns. This can tell me I've got 8 patterns to this data. And you can see that the majority of the data has valid values in it. Let's see, that's a valid value, that's a valid value, and that's a valid value. So let's assume that we've identified that this is the valid values of rule that we want to say that if it's one of these 3 values, patterns, then it fits this format. So if I can click on those, and what we'll do is we'll create a rule for that. But if you look, Down here, look, in this date of birth, these are the ones that are showing up, these patterns, showing you things that shouldn't be there. So here's, in this date of birth, it has a phone number, it appears. So one of the things we're going to want to do when we go to cleanse this data is we're going to make sure we want to pull that data out and put it in the proper context. If we want to match somebody by name and date of birth, we need to make sure that the date of birth is in the proper format and the proper field. If we want to match someone by name and phone number, we need to make sure we pull that phone number out of that date of birth field. So discovering these kind of issues and then creating the rules on them, let's go back up here to the phone number field and look at that and look at the patterns in there, and you can see that there's a number of different patterns. And if we wanted to select one of these patterns and create that, which I've already done, I've created a rule that goes down, and you can see that created some rules for valid phone patterns. And if I edit this and let you look at it, you'll see that it's testing for the pattern of parentheses and such to say, if it fits this, then it's valid. If it doesn't fit this, flag it. These are the sort of things you want on a dashboard going forward to know that your data feeds are coming in and they have the proper sort of information. So once you've discovered this, you've decided if you're going to cleanse the data, you go to the process within Data Services to actually cleanse the data. So let's open up Data Services here. I've logged in. I'm showing you this is the initial screen. It has sort of a cockpit sort of feel. You can see it's got links and such in here. It's got a link to something called blueprints. Blueprints are where we're going to focus today, because if you're moving from legacy Firstlogic products to Data Services, the blueprints are going to be your friend. So I'm going to open up this thing called Data Quality USA Blueprint on the left-hand side. This is a project. If you look down at the bottom here, this is an easy-to-use tool set, but this is your object library. You have projects. You have things called jobs, either batch or real-time. You have things called workflows. They're decision trees. Within a job, you can say, read file A, compare it, and if it gets a certain score, run process A. If it doesn't, run process B. So it's a decision tree of different processes. Those processes are actually called data flows. The data flows is your actual extract, transform, and load process, or ETL. It reads data from somewhere, it does something, cleanses it, and then it puts it somewhere, it loads it. The things that it does are called transformations. It transforms the data, and you can see up here there's some things called data quality transform. When John was talking earlier, he mentioned some legacy products called DataWrite, DataWrite IQ, and ACE, and Match and Consolidate. You'll see over here that those products are now single processes or transformations. You have a data cleanse transformation. That was what we used to call DataWrite IQ, or that SAP did. So you can see in here there's a lot of different templates already built and set up. There are geocoders. There's matching. There are templates for that. Already out of the box rules set up for you. You drag and drop it. You can see. So these are the different sort of processes. Even beyond those pre-built processes, there are templates. So let's show you, open up a template. There's a job here called BQ Blueprint USA Match Associative. And what a match associative means is that if I have a Jeff Knotts at 123 Main Street and an email address and a Jeff Knotts at 123 F Street, it has the same phone number and another Jeff Knotts at 123 Main Street. These are, if A plus equal B, then A equals C, because the two match with the phone number and then the two match with the address, and there's overlap. So this actual process, as you can see, is pre-built for you. The only thing you would have to do to come in and build your process, and John actually explained that they threw away their process because they were writing a file, they were pulling a file with a script, they were writing a file, they're picking it up with a data cleanse process with a batch, and they were writing out another file, then they were running a batch and picking it up. You can see here that you have a file here at the beginning, and I clicked on that, and this is a it's just a flat file, and as we look at this file, and we get to the end, there's a couple miscellaneous fields, and it has mixed data in it. So the key here is we want to pull that useful data out of there, put it in the right place. We want to standardize the addresses. We want to match this and find a relationship. So this blueprint already does all of that, and it matches on name and address. It matches on name and email. It matches on name and phone. And then it associates that data and overlaps it. I haven't run the process yet, but it overlaps that data and actually shows you the matches. And we're going to jump back into Information Steward and actually drill into a couple of those and look at them. But this is an out-of-the-box process. All you would simply have to do is go down to where your data file is, pull in a new file, and remap it. So let's do that. Let's pull in a file. Let's see if this file has data that we can use. Oh, a good one. I need a flat file here. Contacts in. Here we go. So all you simply have to do is put that in there, grab a transformation from a query transformation to actually match to log the data, and pull it forward. You simply map the data over and connect it up to the next piece in the process. And do a little bit more mapping, and now you simply, so when John said they started from scratch, the reason being is it's almost that simple to take one of these processes that actually has the rules in it that you need, and you can see if you go up here and look at this, the blueprints that actually ship, that there are a number of these, and they hit all kinds of scenarios. They even have real time. If you wanted to integrate this into a web page so that your customers, as they entered in their address, made sure their address was cleansed and it was able to be mailed to, then you could put that, create a real-time process doing the same thing. Now let's step back and I want to show you the output of running one of these processes. And I have the output of the data where it was run. And one of the things I did was I assigned an ID for anything that matched. Any of the records that match. And so what we're going to do here is drill into one of those, and I'm going to actually show you how that process found that overlap. So if I go to the beginning of this record, you can see that I have a gentleman here. Trying to make my screen bigger. There we go. So you have three individuals here, Hank Gorodeski and Henry Gorodeski. These individuals, my screen sharing paused for some reason. 1 second. So, Mr. Gorodeski, you can see that he has two records with the same name and address. That's a pretty easy match. But what we're telling you is that all three of these records are the same record, or the same person. The reason is that Henry and Hank are often the same representations of the same name. Even though the address is different, if you look over, you'll see that records 1 and 2 share a name and date of birth, and records 2 and 3 also have a match between the phone number. So the ability to overlap those records and actually create those linkages based on name and address, based on name and date of birth, based on name and phone, based on name and email, based on any data values that you can define, you can create all of those different levels and eventually have that 360 degree of your customer, and what I'm showing here. So with that being said, this concludes the demonstration portion of it, and we'll open it up to questions.
Thanks, Jeff. So the floor is now open for any questions you may have. You can enter any questions into the question pane on the right-hand side of your window, and we'll see how many we can answer for you. We did have a couple come in during the presentation. The first is, what is the learning curve for someone currently using a Firstlogic product for them to get going up and running on data services?
Well, I'll start out with that, and then I would actually ask maybe John to or Kathy to jump in at the end, because they know the real story. So if you know the Firstlogic products and you've been using them, you're going to see that there's a lot of similarities. Because you go in here and if you look at this the actual rules and things that you're used to and the things that you call job files are in here as drop-down boxes. So all of the same sort of functionality is there. What you're going to have to learn is a little bit of how you hook up to a source file, how you connect the fields up and give them context and such. The learning curve is pretty simple if you've had that background. It's just another tool of moving data from point A to point B. So you should be up and running in a matter of a couple of weeks from my perspective. John, what would you add to that?
No, I totally agree. And one of the things that helped us, if you have any background with using the bids and the SSIS from Microsoft, it's very similar concepts. A workspace, dragging in functions, connecting them, setting up parameters, doing connection managers. In terms of, just to echo again what you said, when I went through the training, I was amazed as we're going through all these options and everything, is how many of them you can just relate back to what was in Match Consolidate, or what was in ACE, or what was in Data Right. And I guess it's more of a syntax thing that you'll have to learn, not so much a logic thing, because you know how it works. If you're using Firstlogic, you know how it matches and you know how it cleanses. And like Jeff said, it's just kind of learning that interface of here's the query transform that I want to drag over here because I need to do this. And I was amazed at how complete everything was, and how honestly that practically every contingency that we had is built into the product.
Okay, so our next question, how hard is it or how long does it take to migrate from Firstlogic to Data Services?
Again, that's going to depend a bit on the complexity of the job, but you saw that even with the blueprints, and there are wizards. I barely touched on the functionality tool. There are wizards in here to create that matching logic if you want to create it from scratch. It literally be getting up and running once you go through the training, migrating a job. If it's a normal job that went through Data Right, ACE, and Match, a day or two to migrate and test is probably per actual process. It's probably a valid time frame for somebody that has some experience. Would you concur with that, John?
Oh, absolutely. Again, it all depends on the complexity. I think it took us just a little bit longer because we made our jobs way more complex than they needed to be, and so kind of transferring that into the new environment, took just a few extra days. But honestly, after I saw this demo the first time Jeff did it, said you can sit down and build this stuff. If you use Firstlogic and you know what it does, you can sit down and start building things. And the great thing about it is that you can screw up all you want to. And check output if that's not what you want to do. Rethink your logic and do it again. And if it's not right, it's not going to run for you. It's just kind of like any of the other environments that you work in. And I think that I was amazed at the connection. That having a Firstlogic background makes it so much easier to jump into this.